Alright, so I'm Index. This is gonna be the barrier skip tutorial. I'm gonna go over the new queue that I made recently and all 4 or 5 different queues that you can use to line it up. It's a little bit faster and I find it much easier, so I'm just gonna go over it. And just for kicks, I'm gonna go over this initial clip as well, right after this cutscene ends in any percent or in any other category, to be honest. You just do a rollover, turn, or put the red dot on that corner, item slide forward to this wall, and then hold like a slightly down left ESS, and you gotta stay on the stairs, so roughly this angle, and slightly down left ESS, and usually you'll end up on the bridge, but if you don't, you just gotta react and pull leaf. And then damage cancel, and for the new setup, you want to go in this corner and face this way. Obviously, you do not want gyro on. That's on because this file has already um, done all this stuff, so I've already got like bombs and light arrows as well. But so the key difference between this setup is the last setup used a queue where you look up and see up, and you can see already like that takes a lot of time to just look up, like that's almost a second on its own, and then you gotta line up the angle. Of course, you could make this a little bit faster by, let's say, right after damage cancel, you enter first person and look up while walking, but it's still really annoying, and I've always found this queue really difficult to see. Like, I think this is it, and then you would pull Wind Waker to turn around, and you'd do an item slide, and you would go through the barrier. I think I'm a little too far forward. Yeah, I'm just gonna restart the item slide. This isn't angle, this is what part of the barrier I was on. And yeah, you can see that worked. And so the new queue that I made, well, new setup, I don't know what it is. The first part uses the red dot to get a range, like you want to get a fairly close angle. And so I like to line up the red dot roughly like this-ish. You want it so like a little less than half is shown on that is blocking that line, so like that line is touching the halfway mark of the red dot. This isn't exactly it, in fact this is pretty far off the actual angle, but this is just to get a ballpark, so like don't worry about this too much. Of course you can get the full thing based on the red dot if you get used to it, but there are other cues that I like to use. So one other cue that I like to use is the Master Sword. If you look at the hilt of the Master Sword right now, actually this is the fully charged Master Sword. I'm not quite sure if that one works. But if you look at the hilt of the Master Sword, it lines up perfectly with a certain line on the wall, like right here. You can see the hilt of the Master Sword, the bottom right of the hilt of the Master Sword lines up with a wall on the mount, or a texture on the mountain. And so that's one of the cues that I use. That's again just a ballpark one because it's not easy to get a precise angle with that. Another one I use is the D-pad. This is probably the one I use the most. And basically, you can see right now I'm holding down and Link is like bobbing up and down and the screen's shaking a little bit, which is a little annoying, yeah, but it's still fine, to be honest. It just takes getting used to. And the D-pad, you can see right now the bottom left corner, not the bottom left, it's like the left part of the D-pad, the left extension of the D-pad, and the bottom left part of that extension is touching the edge of the flagpole when Link bobs to the left far enough. So like this would be too far to the left. I want it just so the D-pad is not touching that. So like this might work, but it still might be too close. Like this would definitely not work because you see the right side is touching the edge of the flagpole, and that means that just means it doesn't work. This would probably work. Like what is this, 15 549? Yeah, I think this works. I think it works up to 15551. You see I've got a data viewer on right now, but I don't have these things memorized because it is fairly new and I haven't been playing that much because I've been busy. But yeah, so this would be something I go with. Another one I like to use is, you can see there's a pillar in the background, um, and it lines up almost perfectly with the edge of the barrier. So when I just stand still, the barrier drifts just far enough so that the left edge of the pillar lines up with the edge of the barrier. I think usually when I do this, the when I'm bobbing up and down, the right edge of the pillar lines up with the edge of the barrier, but maybe not. I don't know. It has been a while since I've done this. But you can kind of get a feel for it. It just barely touches the edge of the pillar when you're standing still. So if you want to use that instead of a bobbing up and down cue, that works. Kiba also has one that he sets up in first person, where you can see there's like a small amount of light right on the pillar, and between the pillar and the barrier, and so he likes to use that. You can see a little bit of the light side of the pillar, and so like this would probably be a good angle. And then another one that Super Dude made was there's a tree on the very left side of the screen, and if the I could be wrong on this, but if the base of the tree is showing just barely, then that means the angle's good. But you want it so like the least amount of the base is showing. Personally, I stick to the D-pad. It works for me. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you just item slide forward, and you want to get roughly in the middle, and then press target, and then after some time, Link should clip through. And this is the whole setup. It's pretty simple. It's a lot easier to see, in my opinion, than the old setup. I don't know. I had a lot of trouble seeing the light textures with the older setup for barrier skip, so I wanted to make something like this. And then there's also the fact that it's slightly faster, in theory, because you don't have to do the aiming up, and you're just already in grappling hook. So you shouldn't, in theory, you shouldn't have to turn around. Like, let's say you do a side hop into this part of the barrier, and while you're knockback canceling, you pull Wind Waker. That automatically turns you around, and then you're just already getting the angle. You've already got grappling hook out, and once you get the angle, you just go. So like, here, and that would probably work. Yeah, so that's how I do barrier skip. Thanks for watching.